Yeah. Hi, John. Great to have you here. Really appreciate you taking time for this. A quick context for anybody listening to this. This series is all about raw tactical conversations with operators who have actually been in the Web3 growth trenches, so to say. My goal is to ensure that there is no fluff, just real stories, frameworks, and understanding the decisions that shaped these different ecosystems. So, John, you have been at the forefront of BD in Avalanche ecosystem, which is one of the most prominent L1s out there, and I've been following your work for many years now. Really excited to dig into this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Arpit. It's good to be with you and good to catch up.
Thank you. So, maybe just to kick this off, before we get into the deep end, so maybe we can start with a quick intro. And let's take a stock of Avalanche today and where is it headed in the next few quarters and years.
So I think Avalanche come September will have its 5 year anniversary of mainnet launch. So in that 5 years, I think you've seen us do a lot of different things, tackle a lot of different industries. And that's kind of tied to the long-term roadmap that we've had. We've had it for a long time. We've been planning this from the beginning effectively. And it takes time, right? And I think the things we like to do oftentimes get lost in the day to day or the short term narratives that emerge in the space. So I'll say, when we first launched, we launched with a cohort of other L1s that were live. And a lot of people were focusing on enterprise and institutional. But at the time, Ethereum was the only one that was around for a long time. And there's the kind of the saying that no one ever gets in trouble for using IBM, right? And Ethereum was the safe choice. So people always defer to that. So whether it's Avalanche or any other new chain, institutions, enterprise, incumbents are not going to take a bet on new technology. So we made a focus to pay attention to what was kind of in front of us at the time, and that was DeFi. So we launched Avalanche Rush in 2021. We started off with DeFi. That was the crypto native application. We were an EVM chain, and at the time we were able to be fast, inexpensive, and really scale DeFi in a great way. That success that we had, I like to say, was a kind of a crawl moment, allowed us to then add on to that enterprise and institutional adoption, which was our walk moment. We were able to do this with the launch of subnets. We called them subnets at the time. They've now been rebranded to Avalanche L1s because essentially they are L1s. So for the greater part of a year, year and a half, we were focusing on onboarding a lot of enterprises, institutions. You saw this in Asia, in the Middle East, and in the US with gaming, with loyalty and rewards, with payments, with banking and institutional partners. This was limited to permissioned private chains. So permission at the validator set private users and permission public chains. So permission at the validator set public users. We saw this with SK in Korea and all the gaming projects that we had come online. That was kind of our walk moment. And now, as of the end of last year, earlier this year, I think we're in our run moment, which is the culmination of the full vision of Avalanche, which is the C chain, which is permission private and permission public chains with the addition of public permissionless chains. So more crypto native, innovative chains. And that network of networks kind of that connects different use cases, different jurisdictions, different compliance requests, different um, setups for whatever your business or your use case really is at the chain level, right? I like to oftentimes make this analogy that, you know, we've had first, second, third generation blockchains and technological improvements, but the industry is still stuck in a first generation business model, which is repeating general purpose chains with a little bit of a tweak and a little bit of an improvement and a little bit of some new feature. But these are incremental technological improvements still being applied to a general purpose business model, which is general purpose chains whose products are their tokens and they kind of cycle through. That looks like AOL to me. That's the early days of the internet. You'd log on to AOL with the dial up and you had everything on one page. WordPress came along and changed that. Shopify came along and changed that, whatever the analogy you want to use. We believe that there needs to be a proliferation of blockchains. We do believe in a multi-chain world, but we don't think that every use case and every enterprise and every institution and every innovator is going to fit their business, their application, or their asset onto a pre-existing chain That's kind of the inverse. We believe in giving people the ability to build the infrastructure they need from the ground up to fit their need, their business, their jurisdiction, their compliance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where we are now. And we're seeing dozens of new chains on testnet in the pipeline and coming in across institutions and enterprise and gaming and crypto native and AI and DeFi and. And the Avalanche C chain, which is the hub, is really the liquidity hub. So the business model of this industry on the infrastructure side prioritizes, integration of roadmaps of chains and new treasuries and all the benefits that they give. They don't really take into account all the new updates that happen. So we kind of are in a different role. But the C chain effectively can be a hub for all the layer one tokens to trade against USDC or AVAX or whatever, or Bitcoin or whatever other asset you want to trade against. You can deposit these L1 assets into borrow lend protocols. And then the C chain, which is already integrated with every major exchange and wallet, can be the hub for these tokens, for these assets. And then you can settle back on your L1. The ultimate goal is to move assets across chains as easy as it is to move a file on your desktop between folders. So that's kind of the grand vision, what we've been pushing forward towards. We've been making incremental success along the way and progress on the technical front and also on the BD front. I mean, I'm really proud of the tech that we have and the roadmap that we have. And our job and my job and the team's job is to really illustrate what the network is capable of and highlight the use cases.
Yeah, no, I think this is really interesting in the analogy that you gave about WordPress and AOL. I think that really drives this point home. But I have slightly different way of thinking about this same problem, right? So how I think about this is like Web 2 or the internet as we know it today. What crypto is enabling is a settlement or a financial layer on top of that, which is a permissionless settlement layer. And this permissionless settlement layer is enabled by these public ledgers. Now there are multiple ledgers, right? So that's the transaction layer or the financial layer on top of current internet, right? And now what is happening is different ecosystems. For example, Avalanche ecosystem is one such ledger, and on top of that you have last I checked some 300 L1s already built on top of that. I'm not sure if that number significantly increased now, but it was around 300, right? So building on that liquidity slice that Avalanche has, and Avalanche C chain then interacts with other ecosystems like other such ledgers. So there are two levels to this interoperability. So there is this intra ecosystem operability between these L1s which you already have, and then there is real interoperability between other fundamental ledgers like Ethereum and Avalanche and maybe Solana and other such ecosystems. So so I understand like inter ecosystem is really going well. So do you have plans, or what's the state of current interoperability between other such fundamental ledgers and C chain?
Yeah, so you make a great point, right? And I think, I do believe in a multi-chain future, so much so that I think a lot of these chains are going to be Avalanche native chains, because Avalanche has the ability to add support for Ethereum virtual machine based chains, Move virtual machine based chains, Solana virtual machine based chains coming, and so on and so forth with future virtual machines. We can't be stuck in time on a single virtual machine. The basis for all of it, though, on our side with the C chain is the EVM. So we have about 60 chains live now, give or take, and another 150 on testnet. So we're getting close to that 300 mark. Not there yet, but to your point, we have, and using Avalanche kind of interchain messaging, the ability to have that intra network settlement instantly. On the inter network settlement, we're seeing this, but I still think that it's clunky. I think the industry has to rely on third party bridges, and we see hacks and we see issues with this all the time. But fundamentally, I don't think the industry is going to really embrace interoperability at the level that we need to succeed. So this might be kind of a counterpoint to what people say. Everyone talks about interoperability, and there's a lot of providers trying to do interoperability, but no ecosystem really gains from providing that interoperability. Nobody wants to have leakage to another ecosystem, right? So it's not that easy, and it's not that welcomed. As much as people herald it and talk about it, it's not that simple, right? The user experience, the user interface of bridging between even two EVM chains or an EVM chain to another virtual machine chain is still clunky. It's difficult, and it's prohibitive to the average user, even to the somewhat crypto native user. It's, you got to kind of hold your breath and hope that the funds arrive and there isn't a mistake. This reminds me of the early days when I used to move Bitcoin, right? Our biggest qualm with Bitcoin is if you send BTC from one wallet to another, you got to kind of hold your breath and cross your fingers and hope that you didn't make a mistake. And that anxiety that you get from waiting 5, 10, 20, 40 minutes, you had that same anxiety with bridging, right? So it's literally the same feeling that you get. So our solution to that is the intra-network interoperability, right? The ability to do that at a level that you don't have to. You just click a button and it moves. That's built into the network at the foundational level, right? So it allows for things to move easier and quicker. I think we've made tremendous progress as an industry towards interoperability, but it's just clunky because the incentives aren't there for people to allow their network to leak to other networks, right? So you have to rely on the third parties, and those third parties don't always have the full picture or the full support that they need.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, that focusing on that intra network, easy settlement between different chains is probably a good way to start here, so that users at least have seamless experience within that ecosystem. So that's a great one. So now moving on to a different direction now. So we did this partnership around AI infra build AI program, right? And I saw that the traction was huge. Large number of applications, solid infra projects for last few months. So that takes me to a point that you made initially, narratives. There are so many narratives emerging. AI agents was a narrative, then there are other things which are coming up now. Uh, what's your framework to identify what's coming next? Like, what's your mental model for understanding these so-called narratives?
So I think, look, narratives are important. And I think this industry fixates on them for 3 to 4 months. And it's always on crypto Twitter. And then you move on to the next thing. To your point, AI agents were the thing. I still think AI agents are the thing. But but the problem we had is everything is hyper financialized in crypto. So with the rise of AI agents, instead of the innovation that comes with utilizing AI agents and integrating them and doing all the necessary stuff to allow that to really break out, what did we fixate on as an industry? The tokens associated with
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
agents,
yeah.
right? So people, instead of working on AI agents and building AI agents and supporting, AI agents on chain, instead we're just speculating on the tokens associated with them. So that little boom comes, and then of course it busts, and then people, oh, move on. What's the next thing? Oh, what's the next thing? So there's always this cyclical narrative game happening. It's, I think, due to the hyper financialization of the industry. Like, that's fine. This is what this industry does best. But you can't keep, if you keep doing this stuff, you're burning people out. You're kicking people out of the industry. You might be, some people that are coming in excited might be kind of, turned off by it. We are looking at a more sustained long-term growth strategy that just links things together, right? So, when you talk about DeFi, right, there's the term DeFi Legos, you're adding things on top. I think there's ecosystem Legos. And for us, there's a lot of Legos that go into this ecosystem. But the ultimate vision and the ultimate mission is to show how a network can have institutions and enterprise and payments and loyalty and rewards and the different use cases for NFTs and DeFi and gaming and AI and DeepIn or whatever. All these use cases effectively are different things that have assets, and those assets will be able to trade, move, be transferred, right? Web 2 allows for the free flow of information, Web 3 allows for the free flow of value. So I think where we need to focus as an industry and where I think we're looking to focus on is how do we digitize value, right? Value can be something tangible, can be something intangible. It could be real world assets, it could be commodities, it could be equities, but it could also be attention. It could be identity. It could be privacy. It could be so many different things that are currently trapped or illiquid or unable to be transferred or traded. These blocks need to be put together, and these things take time. And the one thing that this industry doesn't have much of is patience. So, you know, you kind of lose interest in the journey and focus on the present for the most part. Um, so for us, that's the game. That's the long-term vision. That's the long-term goal. That's what we're doing day in and day out. Sometimes it gets a little quiet because real things take time. Real progress takes time. Real partners take time. Changing the incumbent way of doing things takes time. So when I'm asked what's the one thing you need most of, it's time. But that's also contrary to this industry, right? And
Yeah,
the
absolutely
attention that
agree.
this industry has, the attention span, the narrative cycle. So I think we can do a better job being relevant in the short term so that we can deliver more and more on the medium to long term as we have now.
Yeah, so I somehow differentiate between two things, narratives and hype cycles, right? So hype cycles are, these cyclical things which happen, and at one point there is a tech breakthrough, and then everything becomes about a token, and then pump and dump and everything happens, and then sudden bust is there, and then the tech matures, right? So
Mhm.
this continuity for me is a narrative, while all of this is just hype, right? So I look at it
But to your
a
point
little
on
bit.
that, real quick, I don't
Yeah.
want to be overtly critical. Like I sound like I'm being very critical of anything. I will make a positive point about this. These boom and busts that I said are kind of exhausting and tune people out. These happen in every industry. They've happened in every industry. They happened in the early days of the internet. They happen in everything. I think what we're doing is it's being kind of truncated. So they're happening much quicker and much like more excessive in a shorter period of time. So that little boom and bust speculation that used to take 2, 3 years is now 3, 4
Yeah.
months, right? So we're truncating it. That new tech, that new breakthrough, that new idea comes out. Everybody jumps on the bandwagon, they spin it, and then it goes away. But then in the aftermath of that, or the rubble of that, you do build real things. The real people emerge because that takes time. So to kind of counterweight my criticism or my critical action or thoughts on that, I would say that actually could be a good thing because it's eliminating that hype fast, right? Hype eliminates that, and the narratives eliminate that kind of longer drawn out thing that we used to see in the regular world into a smaller period so that the real adoption and the real kind of fundamentals can take over afterwards.
Yeah, so I think it's a fitment. So there is this tech feasibility, there is capital movement, there is actual need and pain, and then there is this identity shift. So I feel narratives are somewhere formed when these three, four things they come together, right? And hype cycles are very natural, as you mentioned. And I think crypto Twitter marketing pace is much faster than actual product development. So we see these boom and bust, right, so fast. But that's I think that's a great point that. Irrespective of these hypes, it is always important to align.
Progress is being made
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day.
yeah. Progress is, yeah, absolutely. So there is a direction to it. So you mentioned something about ecosystem Legos, right? And ecosystem is probably a term which is one of the most abused terms in crypto, other than strategy. I would say
And
strategy is the term,
community.
and community, right?
Community
So
ecosystem strategy. They're like this word salad that people use to fill in whatever they need at the time.
yes. So I would love to double click on your ecosystem Legos. Like what are the different components and how do you deconstruct that ecosystem for Avalanche?
So the ecosystem to me, what that word means, it means all the players within the Avalanche world. And what I mean by that, there is enterprises, there's institutions, there's users, there's developers, there's community, right? The people who are your ambassadors and your evangelists to other people. Um, and you have to break that out, right? There's the ecosystem part of what's being built and what's being used. And then in crypto, typically there's the people that just solely rely and talk about the token. And the two things are vastly different and they're not as connected as people like them to think, right? There's a complete token economy that is separate from the on chain economy. There's ways now and people and narratives about how the two are linked and I don't think so. I don't think so so much. I think they're nice narratives when they fit, right? Sometimes you see some ecosystems that are thriving in one thing and not the other, and vice versa. And some that are token only and everything else is vaporware, whatever it may be. The ecosystem refers to all the players and all the actors that are helping drive either Avalanche forward or this industry forward, right? So if I talk about the ecosystem as an industry, I talk about the exchanges, the wallet providers, the custodians, the interoperability providers, the different L1s, the L2s, the roll up as a service, the blockchain as a service, and. So that's on the industry side. That's what the ecosystem is. Um, and traditional finance players, et cetera. Within the Avalanche ecosystem, first and foremost, it's the builders and the developers, whether they are institutions, enterprises, crypto native, gaming studios, or whatever they may be. Then there's the users, right? Build it. If you build it, they will come. That's not always the case in crypto. So the people who are at the vanguard of trying these new applications, using these new assets, bringing their assets on chain. Um, and then there's the community, which is your evangelists and the people who use you and go talking about everything. I like to often criticize this industry and say that like things on chain are great, but we keep building this on chain economy or on chain world. It's like a different planet, right? And the on ramps and off ramps are still
Yeah.
very hard and they're very clunky. So it's like, great, we've built this utopia on the moon. The on chain economy is the moon. That's our ecosystem. And we talk to people about it. And crypto people have this problem, and I think it's elitism because we are still such a small industry and we want recognition. And now, with regulation in the US and the opening, we're being taken seriously. But for the longest time, we weren't. So we talk to people about crypto as if we understand something fundamental and they don't. We look at them as different. As, what do we call people that are not crypto native? It's a pejorative. We call them
Yeah.
normies. Like, you don't get it? That's actually, for as much as we want to be revolutionary and change the world and decentralize finance and do all this great stuff, that's condescending, right? Like, because we like that we have our own understanding and our own in group and our own world. So, ecosystem is a different planet that we are all building on and making it fantastic and better, but we're still not allowing people to get in and out of it as easily.
Yeah, and while everybody wants more and more people to come, but we have created these barriers. Tech
Yeah.
language being one. So, if you look at any pitch of any L1, L2 or whatever, so generally it starts with tech. ZK and this consensus mechanism. So, which immediately shuts off pretty much half their audience, right?
More
And
more than that, like I tried to
yeah,
onboard
yeah,
someone the other day. They're like, "How do I buy this?" I'm like, "Oh, download a mobile wallet." They're like, "What's a mobile wallet?" I'm like, "Okay." They
yeah,
download a wallet, and then they're like, "Okay, what do I do?" I'm like, "Okay, write down your seed phrase." They're like, "What's the seed phrase?" I actually we don't take a minute to really do this
yeah,
as regularly as we think because we live on this other planet. And I was like, the seed phrase is kind of like think of it as your safe deposit box. Like your public key is the bank key, and your private key is your key, and then you do it to open them. He's like, where do I keep these words? I'm like, on a paper. He's like, what if I lose the paper? I'm like, don't lose the paper. Right? Like when you talk it through with somebody, though, you're like, why do we make this so difficult? And I get it, but that's a level of kind of like a graduation level that people should get to, not start off as. But we like that as an industry. We like to show people how advanced we are,
how
how
complex we are.
how complex we are, how
Yeah.
you just trust your bank. You shouldn't, but it can't be so difficult as you to the you know trust yourself. But if you can't even trust yourself to do it right because you don't understand it, what are we achieving?
Yeah, I think that exclusive mindset is somewhere creating more problems than
Of
it
course.
is solving for. Yeah. So okay, so I think on ecosystems, like what do you optimize for when you are growing an ecosystem? So there are different components. There are developers, there are users, there are retail investors, exchanges, infra partners. Like what do you optimize for, and what? How do you measure your success as as a L1?
So I think there's a couple different factors here. I would say first, so some people call this the barbell approach. I call it a top-down approach or top-down, bottom-up. I think you see some ecosystems that focus on top-down, headlines, big names, big partners, authority and credibility. But that oftentimes doesn't translate to usage. You see other ecosystems that focus only on bottom-up, innovation only, developers, crypto native, etc. I think it's a mix, and it's harder to do both. But the top down does matter. Top down is your institutions, your enterprises, your global brands, your incumbent players, your whoever it may be. They give you credibility, they give you authority, and they are at the forefront of what I like to think of as kind of reinvention. I think we have two things in this space. We have reinvention and revolution. For the most part, everything that we've done to date is reinvention. We're taking something that exists and making it better, faster, cheaper, decentralized, add the shiny object on top, right? Um, but institutions, enterprises, incumbents, top down, are at the reinvention level. And I think that matters because you need to show you don't go from we have banks, we don't need banks overnight. You go to we have banks, we make banks better. We have payments, we make payments better. We have loyalty and rewards, we make them better. You need to show that it's possible to crack that ceiling, to make that progress, so that you can inspire the developer and the startup and the new guy who is doing bottom up to build something novel and new and gain inspiration from that to build the revolution stuff, right? From the bottom up. Revolution, right? Like I said, changes the status quo and says, we have banks, we don't need banks. Here's a better idea. Well, you can't get rid of banks overnight. That's not going to happen. But you get my point. It could be something new. I oftentimes say that we don't have anything new in this industry. We just keep reinventing things and making it better. But that's because we haven't had the rails, the partnership, the ability, and the inspiration to really do something new, right? Web 2 had social media as that moment, right? It was like this is something new. We don't have anything that new in crypto. DeFi is close there. But again, that's reinventing the financial stack using crypto. We haven't found a way to do that. So when building an ecosystem, it's first of all who you bring into it to build great stuff. And the top down matters and the bottom up matters. So first, tech is fantastic and all the tech is great, but it comes down to people. The people you're working with, whether top down or bottom up. You have to believe in them. You have to believe in their vision. You have to believe in their mission. And most importantly, you have to believe in their ability to execute. Secondly, after you do that, then you have to incentivize and bring in the users, right? Someone can build the best application in the world that is revolutionary and life-changing. If nobody uses it, doesn't matter, right? So how do you get them from 0 to 1 so that they can go from 1 to 10 on their own? So that's the second part. First part is the builders. Second is the users, right? So whether it's user incentives or whatever flywheel you can do to help that application, that use case get traction and get usage. And I would say third, sustainability, right? Do they have a business plan? Do they have a way to make money? Do they have a way to pay their bills? Do they have a way to grow and scale that doesn't include minting a token out of thin air and then that token trends down because they're using the token to pay their bills, which it was the early stages of crypto, right? I think we're shifting away from that. We've been focusing on trying to shift away from that for the longest time. So the builder, the user, and then sustainability. That's kind of, I think, the three-prong approach.
Yeah, and the barbell approach that you mentioned, top down and bottom up. So on one end you have scale. For example, one enterprises immediately brings in millions and millions of users to crypto, and then on the other extreme you have possibilities. These are people who rebel against anything and everything. They are minting random meme coins. They have moved their finance completely to a decentralized finance stack, right? So I think that possibility is really important for overall dynamism of the ecosystem. So I think this is great. So coming to sustainability, right? So pretty much all the ecosystems at one point, because it was not experimental, it was early stage tech. Everybody had some kind of incentives for people to come and try out, right? So that kind of graduated into grant programs, and now there are 100 different grant programs, and I don't know how many millions are spent every year in grant programs. But do you think we should have grant programs at this point in time when crypto has proven itself as a proven tech, when enterprises have adopted? Yes, there is a small place for maybe credits and small incentives, but grants as traditionally as they're understood in crypto, do you think, or in fact, let me rephrase it, why should grants even exist today?
So I think grants are still being used and abused in a very, very broad way because it's effectively right. You're like, no, I'll give you more money. No, I'll give you more free money. And then there's no incentive for the person to deliver, right? Like you're effectively paying them to get out of bed. So when I first joined this industry, it was like, who's paying the most? And then it became, milestone. Then, we've always done things with milestones. Um, and we try to now we shy away from milestones for basic things. People come to us and say, well, this guy's going to give me this much more and that much more. I'm like, go ahead, take it. Like if you want free money, that's what you care about first and foremost. You're going to go next 6 months when you need more money, the next guy who gives you more. And we've built in perverse incentives into this industry. So the best thing you can do is create milestones. And milestones don't mean wake up in the morning and get out of bed, or like launch your application. Launching your application is not a milestone. Like that's step one that you need to do on your own. I do think grants in general haven't been helpful anymore, to your point, but I do think they do matter. And they matter for the bottom up approach, right? They matter for the two-person team in a dorm room, or the person in an emerging economy, or the bright idea that is just like the moonshot idea. Like, we need some money to get our idea off the ground. Those guys
Yeah.
need a grant, right? Like, that's fine. But you still you'll see some of the biggest institutions and enterprises in the world be like, oh, well, we'd love to do this, but we want a grant. And I'm like, it still shocks me. State of the industry is what it is.
Yeah.
You also can't stand on top of the mountain and shout and be holier than thou, because then you just get left behind too. So it's this balancing act that can get frustrating at times. But there is a place for grant. I think there's more of a place for investment. We've always liked to try and push user incentives because, like I said, you have the great builders, but if they build something fantastic and nobody uses it, it doesn't matter. So user incentives are a great way to get people to use that and create that flywheel and help them get from 0 to 1, and so that they can take it from 1 to 10 and then 10 to 100 on their own.
Yeah, so I think it's about what do you want to optimize for, right? Or so you get what you optimize for. So if you optimize for getting quick projects by giving them money, you will get people who join these ecosystems just for grants, and they will immediately, so they leave as fast as they come, right?
Mhm.
Other ecosystem is paying them more, they will just go there, right? So you optimize uh, for such kind of projects, you get these projects. But if you lead with real solutions, real products, and then uh, at a second degree understand if they really need some incentives, and then you provide those incentives, then it's a very different way of approaching grants. So for you, like, what are the top three things? For example, let's say if a project applies to like 10 different grant programs, maybe Retro 9000 or InfraBuild or InfraBuild AI. Like, what are the top three parameters, or top three things that you want to see in a project?
So a lot of those foundation programs are very tailored, and they all have their own criteria that has been created that is kind of straightforward. I don't. Not all of the criteria is made public because then people game that, right? Like
Yeah.
they just check the list and then they move on. Um, Overall, I think there's common themes, three common themes that you can apply to those programs, other programs, and anything else. Um, Quality of the product, right? You test the product, you see what the quality is, you see if it's been built well, if it's been audited, if it just passes basic level, of technical diligence. Second, the quality of the team, right? Who are they? What's their background? How do they know what they're doing? Not to say that someone has to have amazing pedigree to launch something, right? But like, do they understand what they've built? Do they understand the market that they're in? Do they understand the use case, and do they understand the why? I think
Yeah.
that's the second most important thing. So I would say the three things that we use effectively to judge people. So one, technical understanding. So you get the tech, everything good becomes easy. Second, the personal understanding. Who is it? Who are they? Why do they matter? And third, with giving out grants, it's usually the finance or partnership. It's a financial incentive. But I would say the third thing here is kind of the plan, right? So the project, the people, and the plan. There you go. I just made up three P's. The three P's.
That's
I'm
yeah.
gonna go write this into a document now and share it with my team. No, I'm kidding. Or maybe if I
That's
had time and I wanted to be a KOL on Twitter, I'd go tweet about the three P's. But I would say the plan. Like, how do you expect to take this from 0 to 1? How do you expect to take this from 1 to 10? How do you expect to take it from 10 to 100? And inevitably, when you have a million problems, right? How do you pivot? How do you change? How do you adapt? I think we see people in this industry, particularly on the tech side, are very stuck to their ways, right?
yeah.
The white paper said this, therefore it has to be this. This is my dream. This is my vision. Again, you're the guy on the mountain yelling at the sky. Like, the market will tell you what works and what doesn't. You might build something to tackle project problem A, and the market will use it for problem B. Now, are you going to stand there and say, no, 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 I didn't build this for
Yeah.
project for problem B? And if okay, you can do that. Then you shut down and you go away, or you adapt and you change and you deliver a solution that you may have not even known about. That matters. You'd be surprised in crypto how many people are stubborn like that. I didn't build it for this. I don't want to do that. That's what the market is telling you, right? Or else this is all an academic exercise that really then
Yeah.
doesn't do anything.
So probably that's a deterministic way of that's a deterministic worldview that I have created this white paper, so the world is going to behave in this way, right? But the first thing that becomes immediately irrelevant the moment you launch your product is your white paper, right? So white paper is relevant as long as your product is not live. Immediately the product goes live, nobody really cares about what was there in the white paper, right?
There's a
People care.
general problem with founders in this industry, writ large. They would rather, some, not all, they would rather be right than win.
Yeah,
And some people will tell you, no, but if I'm right, we do win. No, no, no. You can be right and lose. You can be right and someone else can win. But by winning, you are right by default, right? Like
yeah,
this is such a basic thing, but people take it for granted. If you win, you were right. History always, right, credits the winner. The winner, he was right. He won, so therefore he's right. Um, and history is full of losers that were right
no, I
because
think
they
that's a
said the
that's
right,
yeah, that's
So
a great yeah, that's a great point, and there has to be a iterative approach to that end state. Yeah.
and it's
Uh,
becoming more realistic and it's becoming more adaptive, and that's great. So, you know, the project, the people, and the plan. Those are the three things that matter.
no, I think these are three powerful pieces that you just made up.
There we go.
Amazing. So moving on to the last part of this, I want to just talk more about international expansion. So I see Avalanche has a strong presence in different geographies. So Korea, pretty good.
Hmm.
India, you have a strong presence here, and then in Middle East also you are opening up now. So and from a org perspective, I see that from outside it looks like a matrix organization. So there are these verticals. There is, for example, AI, gaming, and all of these different verticals, and then there are these geographies. So it's kind of a matrix organization,
Hmm.
right? So, two questions. So, first, what's your mental model of expansion? Like, how do you prioritize what markets to go after and how to do that? And secondly, how do you manage this matrix organization? Because it's pretty hard to manage a org which is this interconnected between verticals and geographies. Like, how do you manage that?
I
So
don't
these
sleep.
three.
I'm awake 24/7. I'm responding to everybody. No, I'm kidding. Um, so first things first, we have what I like to call the core team. This is the industry specific, use case specific, subject matter experts. So you have two sides of the business. You have the on-chain finance, which includes institutions and capital markets and tokenization and payments and DeFi, all things finance related. And then all things adoption, others related. That's infra, AI, deep and emerging tech, exchanges, wallets, custodians. That's gaming. That's enterprise and institution, right? So we started with a core team. And then a couple of years ago, leadership came to me and said, we should add more people. And I said, let's go into geographies. And despite, they're like, what do you like? In a previous life, I worked in international affairs and then I did international trade. What works in one jurisdiction does not always work in another. Culture matters. Protocol matters. Um, Business ways matter, right? The way tech is global, but business is still personal. It's still local, right? People want to work with people that understand them and know them. The developer and user experience in Korea is vastly different than that in Japan. So you can't expect this one size fits all model of industries to target these different jurisdictions. And if we ignore emerging economies or other economies and other marketplaces that are much more tech forward than the West, frankly, um, we're at a disadvantage. So we started with Japan and Korea. We've expanded into India, Singapore, Vietnam. We have a team in Turkey. We have a team covering the Middle East out of Abu Dhabi. So they focus on UAE, KSA, Qatar, the Levant, other areas as well. There's great developer user activity and need there as well. Um, and then Latin America, of course, as well. And then Europe we cover, but we might be looking to expand there. So you think of all of those regional kind of teams as kind of like mini heads of BD or mini heads of ecosystem. They understand the culture, the language, the protocol, the way we do business, the user preferences, the developer preferences, etc. And then they work in tandem with the kind of subject matter experts or vertical leads on what this looks like, right? So my head of Korea can work with my head of enterprise and consumer on a corporate deal. My head of Japan can work with the head of gaming on a mess on Konami, right? And so on and so forth. Um, it creates great kind of collaboration. We always meet as teams to talk about things. So the international teams meet, the core team meets regularly. Sometimes we all meet together. There's osmosis on who's doing what. Everyone understands what everyone else is doing because effectively we're not doing things in a silo. Nobody operates in a silo. All the verticals have connectivity. All the international markets have connectivity. Our job is to combine all these use cases and let these assets and use cases kind of work together and compete in the ecosystem.
Yeah. So I think the geographies they lead this expansion in their particular
Mhm.
regions, and then they are supported by these vertical leads. So I think that's a good example of a loosely coupled, high performing org setup. Yeah.
It's the goal.
Yeah. No, John. So this was really fire. So many real takeaways for me. I really enjoyed the conversation. I really appreciate
Likewise.
your honest and tactical insights here. Thank you again for doing this. It has been a pleasure having you on.
Always great to see you, Arpit. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, John. Bye bye.
Talk soon.